Hey everybody, welcome to our live book signing. I'm Dr. Daniel Amen. I am here with Natalie, our social media director,
Hello.
who's awesome and amazing. And over the next 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to sign books, answer your questions, and get you really fired up to take care of your brain so you can have a better memory. So, how do you want to greet them?
Well, let's start by answering some questions about you, because I think we always hear about what you're doing. We hear about all your amazing research, but let's talk about you for a second and get the audience excited. So let's rattle them off. So who inspires you the most out of anybody that you've met in your entire career?
Chloe, who's my 14-year-old.
She's awesome.
I just, I never want to disappoint her. I want her to be a really happy human being. But it's not just Chloe. It's also my grandbabies.
Right.
Right. I mean, my older kids, they got the best of me when I was younger. But, I like being older in large part because I take really good care of myself. But when I think of Lewy and Liam and
cutest,
Elias and Emmy. Some of you heard me talk about Emmy. She's 6. She was born floppy and turned out she had a really bad seizure disorder.
Right.
And she loves helicopters. And she got to go on a helicopter yesterday.
Oh
and she's
gosh.
so happy. And one of the reasons I wrote Memory Rescue is as I get older, I want to keep these memories. Memories make you who you are. And I don't want to be a burden to my kids. And quite honestly, I don't want to live with them. I love them. I don't want to live with them. I want to be independent. And this year we had a thing where some of my siblings told me I should take my dad's car keys away. You should meet my dad. That's not likely to happen. Quick secret. If you think your parents shouldn't be driving, and it's a hard conversation, call the DMV. And the DMV will call them in and test them because that's their job.
Right.
All right, time to sign books.
We're signing and we're answering questions. Okay, so who makes you laugh the most? I think I know the answer to this question.
Who makes me laugh the most? Gotta be Tana because
There we
she's
go.
hysterical.
Can we talk about Tana for a second? Who's Tana, for those of you who do not know the amazing Tana?
So Tana's my wife. We met 12 years ago, and 2 weeks after we met, I said, I don't think you've seen the clinic yet. So I invited her to the clinic. We scanned her because we did a brain scan on her. That's what we do here at Amen Clinics, a study called Brain SPECT Imaging. Because quite frankly, I liked her a lot. And I didn't really want to like her if she wasn't taking care of her brain.
I think the image is probably the best image ever. She's sitting there and she's got the IV and she's just looking like, this wasn't the date night that I was thinking we were doing today. It's a great image.
Yeah, Dr. Oz, when I told this on his show, he said, well, that's a buzzkill. But it wasn't because she's a neurosurgical ICU nurse, so she loves the brain.
Right.
And the idea that she could see hers and then even make it better, we put the brain in the middle of our relationship because if your brain's better, marriage with a good brain is hard enough, but with a bad brain, it's really hard.
Yeah, and I think...
But she's amazing, and we're going to talk about food tonight because we always do. She has a cookbook called The Brain Warrior's Way Cookbook. It's phenomenal. And, based on that, in this book, there's a whole chapter on food. But what I love the most, one of my favorite things about this book is we have a table in here. I don't know if you can see it.
I think that's one of the best parts.
But
Super relatable.
so the idea behind the book is if you want to keep your brain healthy, and even when you're young,
Right.
Or rescue it if you think it's headed for trouble, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And we're going to talk about them. And we developed a mnemonic together, with our staff called Bright Minds. And Bright Minds highlights those 11. So B is for blood flow, R is retirement and aging. We'll talk more about it. But in the book, there's this table of foods to lose and foods to choose for each of the 11 risk factors. And it's awesome. I spent a lot of time putting that together with Tana's help.
I think that's so important because I think so many people out there, they just, there's so much information on the internet about what you can eat, what's good for you, even from credible sources. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Many studies say that pot is, it's good for your brain. It actually helps Alzheimer's. But, in retrospect, so many of the studies that we've done here at Amen Clinics actually prove that smoking weed actually targets the hippocampus, which is the most, which is a part of the brain that is the most affected by Alzheimer's, if I'm correct.
You're right. And targets it in a bad way.
Right, in a terrible way.
And so I was at a conference a week and a half ago in San Diego. And right before I went on to talk about memory rescue, there was a woman from the East Coast that talked about how amazing marijuana is. Right. And we published a study, I talk about it in the book last year, on 1,000 people comparing healthy and marijuana smokers.
Right.
Every area of the brain of marijuana smokers is lower than people who don't do it, especially the hippocampus, so the seahorse-shaped structure.
Right.
It helps get short-term memory into long-term memory. It's also involved in mood.
Right.
And so we had an interesting conversation afterwards. And marijuana is actually legal in 10 states for dementia. And I'm like,
it's crazy.
It doesn't fit our experience. Now, at some point, will certain parts of the marijuana plant be helpful? Will CBD oil? There's some evidence it may actually help decrease seizures. But just smoking pot, and I was here today, we saw, did you meet Denny, our veteran?
Yes.
And I was talking to him about, brain health is 3 things. Brain envy, got to care about it. Avoid things that hurt your brain, do things that help your brain. Right. I said, you just got to know the list. And he asked me about marijuana because pain was an issue for him.
As so many veterans suffer with.
And I told him about our NFL study. So we've scanned and treated over 200 NFL players.
Right.
And the level of damage was terrible.
It's just alarming.
But we put them on this memory rescue program, on our Bright Minds rehabilitation program.
Right.
And 80% of them, 80%, show improvement in just as little as 2 months. And so we're seeing all these people come through, and it's like, this is so cool. I feel like a little kid.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, one of my players, his brain looks worse. And I'm like, why does your brain look worse? and he was like really sheepish.
Right.
And he said, well, I stopped smoking pot for the first scan, and I picked it up again for the second scan.
Yeah.
And I was so irritated because I get attached to you doing better. And I'm like, Reggie, his name was Reggie. I'm like, Reggie, smoking pot is not going green. He thought it was like an environmental thing.
Absolutely. As so many people do. I mean, it's a common misconception. Well, let's move to some fan questions. Thank you for your questions. Keep them coming. So we'll move to the topic of memory. So what are some of your favorite memory exercises to do with some of your patients, Dr. Amen?
Well, there's a brand new one in this book that I call Feel Great Anytime, Anywhere.
I love that one.
And it is, so there's something in the memory literature called the Roman room. This is how people for thousands of years have been able to remember long speeches.
Right.
Because what you do is you imagine walking in your house and, right now, you can imagine your house, and as you go through each room, you can peg, or you know what's there in each room.
Right.
The knickknacks, the furniture, and so what you do is you peg what you want to remember to each of the different pieces of furniture in every room, for example. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but I'm a psychiatrist. I want you to be happy. And so we came up with this exercise where you pick 10 to 20 of the best memories of your life that make you feel happy. So if you're divorced, don't pick your wedding, right, from the guy you divorced. That's not what I'm talking about. But you pick 10 to 20 of the best memories of your life, and then you associate them with that piece of furniture or that room. So, for example, I remember my 10. I'm at the front door, and I'm carrying Tana because she's the best thing that ever happened to me. But if you can make it a little crazy and put movement in, you remember it better.
Right.
So I'm holding her at the front door, and I almost drop her. And
Did you really almost drop her?
Well, because it reminds me of the night before our wedding, when we were practicing our wedding dance, and I dipped her.
Oh, no.
I tripped and I almost dropped her, and I didn't. But it's something we laugh about, and it's a beautiful thing about her.
Right.
It's like you don't have to be perfect, and we can laugh about it.
Absolutely.
And then, as I walk in the house, just to the right in the living room is my dad. And he's in his workout clothes, getting ready to work out with me. Some of you that follow my work know he never listened to me until he was 85 and had heart failure. And one day he looked at me and said, "I'm sick of being sick. What do you want me to do?" And he's so stubborn. He did everything. I love that.
And he's so strong. I mean, what is his plank up to now? 5 minutes?
6 minutes.
6-minute plank.
Right. I mean, he's a beast when it
crazy.
comes to lifting weights. He lost 40 pounds. He goes to work every day. He's 88 years old. I mean, unbelievable. And then also in the living room by the Christmas tree, my friend Cyrus Raji's there. He's our research director, and he's handing me a plaque of our Discover magazine article. So Discover magazine listed our brain imaging work as one of the top 100 stories in science in 2016. So that's like awesome and amazing. And as I walk around to the kitchen, there's my mom. She's cooking because she's done that my whole life, and she wants to hear all about my day. And I love that. I mean, she's just like the best mom on the planet. And also in the kitchen is my grandfather, who we're making fudge together. Because my grandfather, who I'm named after, who was my best friend when I was growing up, he was a candy maker. I mean, that was his job. But we are making sugar-free fudge because I want to keep him around longer.
There you go.
He died early of heart disease. So anyways, feel great anytime, anywhere. 10 of the best memories of your life. I have the directions for you here in Memory Rescue.
Awesome. So we'll ask one more question about you. So do you have any guilty pleasures? And do you ever cheat on your Brain Warrior diet? Do you ever cheat? Do you ever have a moment of weakness? And if so, what is the moment of weekness including?
I don't cheat much.
He really doesn't. I work with him every day, and I don't ever think I've even seen you chew
Because
gum.
I love myself. See, I do the right thing because I care about me. And,
I care about me, but sometimes froyo is really...
Froyo?
Froyo. Frozen yogurt is
frozen
really
yogurt.
inviting. But
Well, we were in
anything.
Washington, D.C. I mean, every once in a while I have an ice cream cone, maybe like 4 times a year. And we're in Washington, D.C., and we're on vacation, and we've been so good. And there's a Ben & Jerry's. And I'm like, I wonder if they have anything healthy in there. And I walked in, and Chloe, my 14-year-old, she's like, why are you going in there? Yeah. There's nothing healthy in there. Do you really want me to have to suffer with making a bad decision?
She does. She puts you in check all the time. Tana, too. Oh, my goodness. Is there any lifestyle choices that can improve or inhibit memory loss?
It's all about lifestyle choices that can help or hurt. So, I mean, one of the most important things is sleep.
Sleep.
So I got a call to go to a meeting at the White House for mental health professionals of faith. and I've never been shy about my faith. And it was awesome. But the time zone and having to, sleep in a foreign bed and all of that, that's stressful for you. So I actually don't let my staff schedule me for a plane before 9 o'clock. Because if I don't protect my sleep, then I'm going to make bad decisions. And I don't want to make bad decisions.
Is there an ideal, amount of sleep that you should be getting each night?
Yeah, it should be somewhere 7 to 9 hours of sleep is the best. Because when you sleep, when there's a whole chapter on sleep, your brain cleans and washes itself. And so if you don't sleep 7 hours, gunk builds up. It's this great study I talk about in the book. Soldiers on the rifle range.
Right.
Those who got 7 hours of sleep were 98% accurate. Those who got only 6 hours of sleep were 50% accurate. Look at that difference.
That's pretty crazy.
For just an hour. 5 hours, it was like 28% accurate, and 4 hours is a disaster. You're 15% accurate on the range.
Oh, you can completely relate. I know you wait, when you get a good night of sleep, you come into work and you feel in your game and, you get a couple, hours less and you're groggy all day. You're actually more hungry. I'm tired. I'm unfocused. I'm having a hard time, getting in the swing of things. So
yeah, and you're more likely to make bad decisions. So sleep is absolutely essential.
So, on the topic of sleep, what does, maybe sleep deprivation or memory loss look like in a SPECT imaging scan?
So the study we do here at Amen Clinics is called SPECT, S-P-E-C-T, and it looks at blood flow and activity. It looks at how your brain works. And when you don't sleep well, it shows overall lower blood flow to your brain. If you have sleep apnea, snore loudly, stop breathing at night, you're tired during the day, it actually begins to look like early Alzheimer's disease on the scan, where the back half of your brain becomes much lower in activity.
Yeah, I know when I first saw a scan, the scans are kind of rainbow colored, and when I first saw a scan, I saw a bunch of holes, and they almost looked like craters on the moon, and I said, Dr. Amen, are there actual holes in this patient's brain? You said, no, that actually just measures blood flow and the areas of low activity, so good to know that I'm not having craters in my brain.
We haven't scanned you yet, though, have
No, we haven't scanned me. You're going to pressure me into our entire audience.
Who wants to see Natalie's brain?
Oh, my goodness. Who was your biggest inspiration growing up?
My
Anybody in
grandfather.
particular? Your grandfather?
Yeah.
Why?
Everybody loved him. He was so helpful. And
Successful.
he wasn't sort of business successful, but he always had my attention.
Yeah.
And he spent time with me. My dad, who's wildly successful, he was busy.
Right.
He's working all the time, and that's sort of irritating. I sort of got the work all the time genes, I suppose. But I really want to be more like my grandfather.
Right. Love that. That's awesome. Is there anything that I could eat or I can tell my grandparents to eat that will lower their risk of Alzheimer's or dementia?
Well, so like we talk about in the book, there's foods to choose and foods to lose. And I bet if we went to your second graders class and I put 100 foods to choose and foods to lose, they could separate them.
Right.
I did that in Chloe's class when she was in second grade, and they only missed one, orange juice. It was in the bad category. Why? Because it's too much sugar. Right? Whenever you unwrap fructose, fruit sugar, from its fiber source, it actually turns toxic in your body. So my dad and I used to get into this because he's a grower for Sunkist. He has like 600 acres of oranges in the Fillmore Valley.
Wow.
And I'm like, Pop, eat the orange. But, when is it ever rational? It takes like 4 to 6 oranges to make a glass of orange juice.
Right, so much
When
sugar.
is it ever rational to eat 4 to 6 oranges?
Right.
It's not. Plus, you're not getting all the benefit of the fiber.
Right. So if anybody is interested in buying a signed copy of Memory Rescue, they can visit dramenbook.com, and you can ask Dr. Amen anything. He is an open book tonight. Let's move back to a couple of questions. Did you know why you wanted to get into medicine, and why?
So when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I love animals.
Me too.
And I thought I could be really good at that. And then 1972, I turned 18, and the Army had a draft. And so I signed up to be a veterinarian's assistant because it's looking like I was going to be drafted because of my lottery number. And so I signed up to be a veterinarian assistant, and the recruiter lied. I ended up as an infantry medic, you know. So during a war, that's not a fun thing to be. And so he lied, but I loved being a medic. And I loved sewing people up. I loved diagnosing them. I loved taking care of them. But about a year into being a medic, I realized I didn't love sleeping in the mud. And I didn't really like hanging out with my infantry patients a lot.
Right.
And I hated being shot at. I couldn't get used to the whole bullet through your shoulder, skull, whatever. So I got myself retrained as an X-ray technician and developed a passion for medical imaging. As our professors used to say, how do you know unless you look? And so when I got out of the Army in 1975, I'm like, I want to be a doctor.
Right.
And it sort of worked.
Just a bit.
Sort of worked.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, and then I know there's so much research around SPECT imaging, and how we diagnose patients here is we look at their brains as opposed to looking at symptom clusters, and I think that's so powerful, especially with what's going on in America right now in mental health.
Some people who criticize us say there's not enough research. So today I was on PubMed. Go to pubmed.com and just type in brain SPECT imaging. It will return 13,000 research references.
Where to even start? Okay, so we'll go back to a couple more personal questions. Dr. Amen, if I have ADD, does that mean I'm at a higher risk of having Alzheimer's disease?
That's actually a really good question. There's only one study connecting ADD and another type of dementia called Lewy body dementia, which is the dementia that's associated with Parkinson's disease. The reason you don't want toxins in your body is toxins increase your risk of having Parkinson's disease. So there's an association between ADD and Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
And Lewy body dementia. What's interesting, though, is having untreated ADD is associated with many of the risk factors that we talk about.
Right.
Having untreated ADD is associated with lower blood flow to the brain.
Right.
It's associated with not finishing high school.
Right.
It's associated with inflammation. It clearly has a genetic component. You're more likely to have a head trauma if you have ADD because of the impulsive, excitement-seeking, conflict-driven nature. You're more likely to be driving at 125 miles an hour down the
Lifestyle,
freeway.
and that goes into lifestyle choices as well, nutrition, diet.
And you're more likely to have problems with smoking, with marijuana,
Drugs.
with alcohol, with
Right.
other drugs. You're more likely to be obese because, we live in a war. It's the whole point behind our book, Brain Warrior's Way, is everywhere you go, someone's trying to shove bad food down your throat. And when you have ADD, it's just harder to say no, right? You have impulse control issues, and you wake up every morning wanting to do the right thing, but and you pass the first donut shop and you're like, okay, I did that.
Yep.
And then you pass the second one and you start to sweat. And by the third one, you stop
You're
in
there.
and have 3 donuts.
Right, absolutely.
Right? Because impulse control is so important now. And we're just being bombarded with the wrong messages.
Absolutely.
And they don't sleep as well. So,
And they don't
literally,
sleep as well.
ADD,
Exactly.
untreated ADD, is associated with all of the 11 Bright Minds risk factors.
So I think that's why we tell our patients you got to have brain envy, right? You got to care about your habits and what you're doing. We'll go back to a couple more questions. Is there an early screening for dementia?
Yes, in Memory Rescue, there's actually 2 questionnaires. I love these questionnaires a lot. One is early warning signs. I just opened right to it.
Yeah, that was
so,
that was a miracle.
questions like tend to be forgetful, your memory is worse than it was 10 years ago, misplace your keys or wallets, wonder why you came in a room,
Yep.
have trouble remembering names, feel embarrassed by forgetting appointments. There are questions on planning, confusion with times and places, struggling with words, judgment's not quite as good. And so that questionnaire is there. But then I have another one that may be even more important, and that is knowing your specific risk factors.
Right.
So the beautiful thing is we actually have questionnaire in here of the 11 Bright Minds risk factors. Well, are you likely to have them, and which ones are you likely to have? Because, we have this cool little handout here, 110 ways to grow your hippocampus. People aren't going to do all of that at once.
Right.
And we don't want you to do all of it at once, because then you won't do anything. But this questionnaire will help you know, okay, well, what are likely my risk factors? Is it genetics? Is it head trauma? Is it toxins?
Right.
And then you go after that one first. And then you want to get super serious, you develop one thing to do for each of the 11 risk factors. And we work with this company in Texas. Actually, you were with me when I presented, Satori Capital. And when I went back, all of the employees had their picture up on the wall and their commitment to do one thing for each of the 11 Bright Minds risk factors. Yeah, it was super cool.
They're awesome. I know they have a great vision board too on what they want to achieve during the week and their top commitments. I think that's so important. So we'll go to the next question. I keep forgetting things. Does that mean that I'm on a fast track to having Alzheimer's disease?
Well, if it's worse than it was 10 years ago, the answer is yes, unless you do something about it. And that's the whole point behind Memory Rescue. There's so many things you can do. We want you to do all of them. And if you notice your memory's worse and it seems to be progressive, you want to intervene as soon as possible. Now, sometimes it could be something super simple. So the N in Bright Minds is neurohormone deficiencies, and maybe your thyroid's low, or your testosterone level is low, or your insulin level is too high. And so we teach you how to screen for each of them and then what to do for them.
Is there, a first step you would recommend patients or consumers to start if they're unsure and their memory is kind of diminishing by the
Buy
day?
the book, dramonbook.com.
dramonbook.com.
You get a signed copy. You got to have a roadmap. You got to have a plan. This is your roadmap and plan. I think it's one of the best things I've done. And in it, there are 1,600 references. They're actually all in the back. There are 50 pages of references. I want you to be confident in the science of this. It's not a self-help book. It'll help you, but it's at a much higher level. And it's not hard to read. Right? At the end of each chapter, here are the 10 things to do for blood flow. Here are the 10 things to do for retirement and aging. Not hard, but very comprehensive.
No, and I think, so many times we hear Alzheimer's and dementia, and I know for myself, I think, I'm in my early 20s. I don't think that affects me. But then, later on in life, there is moments where I walk to the car and I'm like, oh man, did I grab my keys or do I have my phone with me? And then there's these little moments like this that I think, okay, I need to get serious about. I need to get serious about my sleep. I need to get serious about my exercise and what can I do today so I don't have problems in the future.
Right. And this book really is not an Alzheimer's book, although if you think you're headed that way, this will help rescue it. It's really, a 16-year-old will benefit from this.
Right.
Because, at a teenager stage or young adult stage, it's how can I have a better brain so that I can enjoy my life better so that I can get promoted at work, that I can perform. Because ultimately, success starts between your ears. And so we have a high school course that we get kids excited about. Optimizing their brain actually decreases drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, decreases depression, and improves self-esteem.
Right.
All of those are brain functions. So whatever your age, attacking your risk factors is important.
Absolutely. We have a great question from Facebook. How does the hyperbaric chamber affect the brain, and will it assist in rescuing your memory?
So remember the 11 major risk factors, bright minds. B is for blood flow. Low blood flow is the #1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease. What I've seen, and we've been doing hyperbarics or recommending it now for 15 years, is it increases blood flow to the brain. It actually increases something called angiogenesis. What that means is the making of new blood vessels.
Okay.
And it's something 25% of our patients we recommend hyperbaric oxygen for.
Awesome. I know we talk a lot about, what we do here and, certain treatments that can help with Alzheimer's and memory prevention, but is there any type of exercises that somebody can do that would assist with, better cognitive functioning?
Well, also B is for blood flow is exercise.
Right.
So physical exercise is really important. And the most important exercise are racket sports, because people who play racket sports live longer than everyone else because it's a coordination exercise and actually works a part of your brain called the cerebellum in the back bottom, which is intimately connected with your frontal lobes.
Wow, interesting.
But you also, swimming was another one of those
Right.
exercises that cause people to live longer. Football, less long. Soccer, less long. Even running wasn't all that helpful.
But why is soccer less long? I know we talk a lot about soccer, but for those watching, why is soccer? I mean, I think of soccer, I think, I played soccer for years and years and years, but I never thought that, there was little impact with soccer unless you're hitting balls with your head.
And did you ever do heading drills?
Not really. I was really young when I played soccer. I wasn't super competitive with it, but in high school, absolutely. So
yeah. You shouldn't be hitting soccer balls with your head.
You shouldn't be hitting anything with your head.
You shouldn't be hitting anything with your head. Especially if you're a girl, because 90% of your IQ is housed in your frontal lobes.
Interesting.
For boys, it's more widely distributed. So if you have a frontal lobe injury, it's worse for females than it is for males.
So let's talk a little bit about the frontal lobes. So I know you and I talk a lot about them, but I know that they're in control of, was it memory and mood and decisions, but how does that affect somebody growing up if they decide to, play contact sports?
Well, it's one of the most important things we can talk about. So the front third of your brain is called the prefrontal cortex, largest in humans than any other animal by far. So 30% of the human brain, 11% of the chimpanzee brain, 7% of your dog's brain, 3% of the cat's brain, which is why they need 9 lives, because they make bad decisions. And it's where your conscience is. We call it the executive part of the brain, because it's like the boss at work. And if you hurt your prefrontal cortex, it's like the boss is not at work, or you have a bad boss, right? That's abusive, that's irrational, that's impetuous, and so on. I think of the prefrontal cortex like your brake. It stops you from saying the first thought that comes to your mind or doing the first thing you think of. And so if you think of, like, you have this great car, so let's say a Ferrari, and you're at the top of a Colorado mountain.
Right.
Your prefrontal cortex is the brake that allows you to navigate curves and corners.
Not go 100 into a 40 curve.
Right. If you can't brake properly, then you end up dead because you make bad decisions. Now, if your frontal lobes work too hard, it's like the brake's always on. Boom, boom, boom. So you never make it down the mountain because you can't get 10 feet without having to stop.
Right.
But it's the most important part of your brain when it comes to being successful.
Right.
And this thing called frontal temporal lobe dementia, talk about it a little bit in the book. It's where these get hurt and all of a sudden you just don't care. And you're saying things you shouldn't say or doing things you shouldn't do. I was on CNN last week when President Bush won, was grabbing women inappropriately.
Right.
Now, he's 93 years old, and they think he has vascular issues in his brain.
Right.
And so the brake is not
there.
working. Because I can guarantee you there are a lot of guys that think about inappropriate behavior, but their frontal lobes stop them.
Right.
But if you have a head injury, or you have environmental toxins, or you have an infection, or you're aging,
Right.
it puts you at higher risk, which, is so sad. And people, it's easy to judge people as bad. It's harder to go, why do they do that?
Right, absolutely. And I know that we talked a little bit about marijuana, but I want to talk a little bit about alcohol for a second because there's been so many studies out there that show you need to have a daily glass of red wine. It's great for blood flow. It inhibits your risk of getting Alzheimer's or dementia. I know your feeling on alcohol, but does drinking alcohol enhance my risk of, having cognitive decline or some form of dementia down the road?
So I'm not a fan. And I've, over the last 26 years, we've been doing imaging. Alcohol has sort of come in and out as far as a health food.
Right.
And, during my lectures, I always say alcohol is not a health food. You just have to look at a number of scans. So here at Amen Clinics, we've done 135,000 scans on patients from 120 countries. So
Right.
I'm not saying this based on 4 studies I read. And I just see people who drink more, they have toxicity in their brain. And then you think alcohol is directly related to 7 different kinds of cancer.
Right.
Breast cancer, colon cancer, mouth cancer, esophageal cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer. And these are not alcoholics. It's just the more you drink, the more likely you are to get cancer. Alcohol study from Johns Hopkins, people who drink every day have a smaller brain. And when it comes to your brain, size matters. It's the only organ in your body where size matters. And then I'm married to a nurse, and why do nurses put alcohol swabs, why did they put that on your skin before they give you a shot?
To make the area sterile.
To kill the bugs.
Right.
Well, what do you have in your gut? 100 trillion bugs. It's called a microbiome. So bacteria, fungi, viruses, and the bacteria there, they make neurotransmitters, they detoxify things, they help you with absorption.
Right.
They're your friends. Chloe calls them her pets. And if you're going to be pouring alcohol, a lot of it, that's not good for your microbiome to get those little suckers drunk.
Right. So for those of you who just started watching...
So less is better. If you don't drink, don't think you're less of a human being. Like, I really don't drink. And people go, really? You don't drink? And I'm like, I don't get the benefit. Now, some people, they feel better because they're sort of naturally a little bit anxious and it loosens them up. So I'm like, 1 or 2 glasses a week, no big deal. 1 or 2 glasses a day, you're going to shrink your brain.
So for those of you who just started watching, thank you for joining us. If you want a signed copy of Memory Rescue, you can visit dramenbook.com and get your copy. We're moving on to our next question. So I know we talked a lot about head injuries, and we talked about how TBI affects memory and just, your central being of life down the road. How does a head injury increase the risk of developing dementia?
Well, your brain controls everything you do, how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. When your brain works right, you work right. And when your brain is troubled, you have trouble in your life.
Right.
Your brain is complicated. You have 100 billion brain cells, more connections than there are stars in the universe. So your brain runs everything you do, and it's complicated. It's also soft. Your brain is about the consistency of soft butter, tofu, custard, somewhere between egg whites and Jell-O, and it's housed in a really hard skull that has sharp, bony ridges. And so just imagine, the car accident,
yeah.
the heading soccer balls, the repetitive contact in football or hockey. It damages the tissue, which means it's going to damage how it and you function.
So if somebody sustains, a concussion or some type of injury in one of those sports, are they more likely to be at risk for cognitive decline?
Having a head injury increases your risk of dementia.
Absolutely. Well, is there, I know that we talk a lot about supplements in our business, but is there any supplements that one can take to improve or rescue their memory if they think it's headed for trouble?
Well, in the book, I talk about a lot of them, but in fact, maybe we could do, because I haven't gone through the whole thing.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So B is for blood flow. I like ginkgo.
Right.
R is retirement and aging, and as we age, acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter involved in learning and memory, goes down.
Right.
And we like huperzine
A. Yep.
And then I is for inflammation, which comes from the Latin word to set a fire. If you have inflammation in your body, it increases your risk of dementia and depression. And there, I love omega-3 fatty acids.
I want to stop you on inflammation for a second because we get so many great questions on inflammation. And I think one of them is, generally, what is inflammation? So what does inflammation look like in the body, and how do I even know if I have it?
Well, there's a blood test to test for it called C-reactive protein.
Okay.
And that'll tell you if you have inflammation or if you have low omega-3 fatty acids.
Right.
You can't just look at someone, although if they have rosacea, that redness in their face, they're more likely to have inflammation.
Okay.
If they have joint pain, they're more likely to have inflammation. And inflammation's not all bad. I mean, when you cut yourself, the area will become hard and red and be painful.
Right.
Well, imagine that happening throughout your body.
Absolutely.
So if you're in an accident, you need the inflammation
To
heal short term. But if it's chronic, it's damaging every organ in your body.
Absolutely.
And the simple thing is get rid of things that increase inflammation, processed foods, for example, trans fats, or having low levels of omega-3 fatty acids, which is rampant in our society. We did a study here on 50 consecutive patients who are not taking fish oil. 49 of them had suboptimal levels of omega-3 fatty acids, and 98% of the
I know we have a great story about the omega index, and one of our coworkers here at Amen Clinics was taking, what was it? I don't even remember what the brand was.
So one of the big box brands.
Yes.
And when we measured his index, it was terrible. So we
And
want you
he'd
to
been
be
taking
above
daily, too.
8%, and he was like at 5%.
Right.
And then we gave him a really high quality fish oil, so quality matters, and within 2 months he was above 8%.
Love that. Let's go over a couple more questions. We have about 15 minutes left, so keep the questions coming. And if you just joined us, please go to dramenbook.com. If you are interested in getting a signed copy of Memory Rescue from Dr. Amen, it comes out next week. A couple of questions surrounding nutrition and coconut oil. So I know that there's been a lot of studies saying coconut oil can improve your risk of getting dementia or Alzheimer's, but is that true? Have you seen any patients that you've used that with that has been used to prevent or treat
I have not
dementia or
seen
cognitive decline?
any one thing be miraculous.
Right. And I think we would all generally know if it did.
There's a doctor who's really well known who her husband seemed like a miracle cure for him. And he was having several tablespoons a day.
Okay.
Coconut oil. I like coconut oil. It has a high smoking point. You can fry things in it. But it also is fairly calorie dense. And I think of calories like money. And I hate wasting money. It just irritates me. I hate wasting calories because that's part of the obesity epidemic in this country. You know, it's 40% of Americans are now obese. It's the largest number in our history. And we've published 2 studies that show as your weight goes up, the size and function of your brain goes down,
yeah.
which should scare the fat off anyone.
Well, let's hop back into, the mnemonic. I know
Okay, so G,
genetics.
curcumin and vitamin D have been shown to help break up the plaques,
Right.
thought to be genetically related
That's amazing.
to Alzheimer's disease.
So we should all be taking that.
So we should all be taking that.
Absolutely.
H is head trauma, so think omega-3 fatty acids, really important. We published a study here on our NFL players.
Right. Omega-3
Fatty acids, a multiple vitamin, especially higher doses of B6, B12, and folate, not folic acid. And then we did a brain boost that worked in multiple ways.
Right.
And 80% of our players showed improvement.
That's amazing.
T is toxins. So the short course on that is decrease your exposure. The book, it's one of the best chapters in the book. And support the 4 organs of detoxification.
And I think,
Do you know what they are?
the 4 organs of detoxification. You're going to stump me. No.
Come on, you can help me. Push yourself. What gets rid of toxins?
Sweat.
Sweat? Saunas. People take a sauna.
Yeah.
I just got one for my house. People take a sauna 5 to 7 times a week, have a 2/3 lower risk of
Wow.
Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
2/3. I mean, that's not hard. Okay, so sweat, liver,
Liver.
the big detoxifier. That's why you don't want to drink because it disrupts
Disrupts
your
your
liver.
liver, absolutely.
Your gut, so eat more fiber. And your kidneys, drink more water. And the supplement I like best for detoxification is one called NAC, or N-acetylcysteine. Fascinating, got fascinating research behind it.
And you had, and just before we get off of toxins, you mentioned another great website that people can actually scan their personal products. And you were just absolutely amazed at the level of toxicity and
In my bathroom.
In your bathroom. And I thought that was such an important part of memory rescue that people can check out, was the level
So there are a couple
of
of
toxicity is
apps.
out of control.
The Environmental Working Group has an app called Healthy Living.
Right.
The one I really like is called Think Dirty.
Yeah, that's
It's hysterical.
I mean, it makes it flap when you say it.
But what you do, and it's free, you can download it and scan your bath soap, your shampoo, your deodorant, your hair gel, and it'll tell you on a scale of 1 to 10 how quickly it's killing you.
And what was your bathroom?
It was like a 5. It wasn't good. And some of, like my bath soap was a 10.
Oh my gosh.
And so that, and then I found something the same price that was a 5.
Much better.
Now, if you love yourself, what are you going to pick?
You're going to pick the 5 or lower.
And so I super love myself. I get something from Africa that's a 2. Right? And I just found Garrett, one of our doctors here, got me, chapstick, but it's called Wax Lean.
Yeah.
That is a 1.
Oh, amazing.
It's like there's nothing bad.
Oh my goodness. And then, okay, so after T, toxins is...
M for mental health. And so the supplements I like, omega-3 fatty acids, if you tend to be a worrier and can't let things go, 5-HTP and the spice saffrons, just amazing research with that. Also SAMe, which can help your mood, can also help with pain. GABA can help with anxiety. So many different things.
And then after M, we're on to I.
Which is immunity and infection, so that's got to be vitamin D.
Right.
You want 80% of the population's low in vitamin D, so you want to get more sun or take a supplement.
Absolutely. And then N is for neurohormone deficiencies.
And so you got to measure them. That's really important. But zinc is really helpful. Zinc and one called L-tyrosine to help with your thyroid.
And then D is for diabetes. And I would love for you to tell your story about your good friend Mark. I think our audience would just absolutely love it. Let's give us the elevator version if you can.
It'll make me cry. So Mark and I were at the White House yesterday. Mark Laser is a world expert in sex addiction. And so I love him. He's been to my house. We play table tennis. We've taught together. But he has type 1 diabetes. He's had it a long time.
Right.
And he was obese. And we were at dinner in Nashville 4 years ago at the Grand Ole Opry Hotel.
Beautiful.
The Opryland Hotel. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. And we're having dinner, and I watch him order chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes and gravy, cornbread, and a souffle for dessert. And in my head, I'm screaming at him. Yeah. What is the matter with you? And I had colorful words with what is the matter with you in my head. But I have good frontal lobes that none of it got out. And I just looked at him and I said, how tall are you? And he said, I'm 6 feet. I said, how much do you weigh? He said 244 pounds. And so I got my phone and I calculated his BMI, his body mass index, underneath the table. And it was 33. So healthy is between 18.5 and 25. Between 25 and 30, you're overweight. Over 30, you're obese. And I looked at him and I said, dude, you're obese. And it just like shocked him.
And it shocked our office too when he read the story to us for the first time. But I think the next part is probably the most exciting information.
And then he looked at me and he said, Daniel, you're so cold. And I said, not nearly as cold as you're going to be when you're 6 feet under.
Oh my goodness.
What's the matter with you? I'm worried about you. Decisions. And so he didn't eat anything that came to dinner that night. And the next month he lost 10 pounds.
And then?
And then 2 years later, we're at the same conference. It happens every 2 years in Nashville. He was down 53 pounds.
He looks amazing.
And he cut his insulin dosage in half. I mean, how exciting is that? And then he's with his wife, and they start talking about their sex life and how good his erections are. And I'm like, but B is for blood flow, right? Get your health under control. There are many benefits to that. And after we got through the whole sex thing and I'm like, was getting healthy hard? And he said, being sick was hard. This is easy. I will never go back. And we were at the White House yesterday, so I got invited to the White House to talk about mental health issues in America. And Mark was there, and he just looked fabulous.
That's amazing. And so after diabetes, we move on to sleep issues. I know we talked a little bit about how much sleep you need and the research behind getting a sufficient amount.
So I like melatonin, but it's usually lower dose than a lot of people think, like 0.5 milligram. I also like magnesium a lot. Mm-hmm. If you're a worrier, I like 5-HTP. But what I really like is hypnosis. I'm a huge fan of teaching your mind to calm itself down. And we actually have an online program called Brain Fit Life where we have hypnosis audios, brain-enhancing music. We have really cool stuff.
We have music for essentially everything. I mean, depression, anxiety, all different things, and they're just so powerful. So we have about one more question. I'm going to give you one more question about Dr. Amen, and still you're able to go to dramenbook.com and get your signed copy of Dr. Amen's new book, Memory Rescue, that comes out next week. So head on over there if you haven't. But here's our last question for Dr. Amen. Dr. Amen, do you have any hidden talents?
People know me well, know that I'm a really good table tennis player.
He is really good. He plays in our office.
I play competitively. In June, I'm going to the World Veteran Table Tennis Tournament in Las Vegas. And I love doing that. Other than that, I drive my daughter crazy when I sing, so I guess that's not a talent.
Oh, and you love Christmas music year-round. That's another one that drives his wife crazy. But I think that's it for today. So thank
Jingle bells.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And again, if you want to order Dr. Amen's new book, you can go to dramenbook.com. The book is out live next week, and we are so excited for everyone to see it. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon.